So today marks the third anniversary of my mom's death. Some of you may have seen the video that I did of my mom's end of life and her home funeral that we did for her. If you haven't seen that video, I'll post it right up here. It was, she was in hospice. She was sick for a very long time. She had a massive stroke in 2001, and then she developed Parkinson's in 2009, and then she passed in 2019 from uterine cancer. And so we as a family took care of her. She gradually, of course, got weaker and needed more care. And I know that a lot of people out there are going through the same thing right now. You may be of the sandwich generation, which means that you're caring for elderly parents as well as your children at the same time, which causes even more stress. And, undoubtedly, this is going to be a stressful time. But there are things that you can do in order to alleviate some of that stress. And there's things that you can do to communicate better with your family, to make this period of your life to go as smooth as possible. We were under so much stress every single day for those 19 years, making sure that mom had the care that she needed, making sure that we had the care that we needed, and making sure that our family wasn't going to go bankrupt in the process. Because as we know, if you have an illness and a serious illness in the family in the United States or in many parts of the world, you can go bankrupt. And that is a horrible, horrible, horrible thought. It's just bad enough that you have someone you love be sick, but then to actually go bankrupt is even a whole other level. So I really wanted to talk to you guys about some of the things that you can do for yourself and as a family. I'm Risa Morimoto, your host. I'm an integrative nutrition health coach, and you're watching Modern Aging, where we chat about innovative and holistic ways to elevate our health and well-being as we age. If you're new to the channel, I'd love for you to subscribe. All you got to do is click on that little red button below with that little bell next to it to be sure to be notified whenever we post a new video. And if you are enjoying these videos, I would be grateful for a thumbs up. That way it tells YouTube to send more people like you this way. So, wow, where do I even start? If you have a sick parent, it's a tough time. And if they have a chronic illness and an illness that may take years away from them, may take years away from you, it's really, really important that you develop lines of communication. And you want to actually be doing this before anybody gets sick, right? You want to do it when everybody's healthy, but unfortunately, we as humans don't tend to work that way. It's a difficult family discussion to have. And if you have siblings, you may want to discuss it amongst the siblings first. There's often a lot of disagreement among siblings, and I think that we need to have a little bit more grace. Some people can't deal with the fact that mom or dad, mom, dad and dad may die at some point, right? They may get very sick. So how do we address this? How do we come together on a united front in order to make sure that they get the best care? I think that it's really important, first of all, that you get the paperwork done. That's your POA, power of attorney. That's your healthcare proxy. That's your living will. And these documents need the person in question, the person who you're talking about, whether it's your parents or whoever, in agreement, because they have to sign off on those, right? Who do they want? Do they want to be resuscitated if they're on life support? Do they want, to be hospitalized? Where do they want to die? What do they want in terms of, we're not even talking about, the will or anything like that. That's a whole other thing. But the reality is that 70% of us are more likely to get sick before we die, right? We're more likely to get some sort of chronic illness before we pass. So in that case, I recommend getting an elder care lawyer as opposed to an estate planning lawyer. An estate lawyer usually takes care of the estate, right? The property, the home, the cars, whatever it may be, and how they're going to divvy that up, and how those assets are going to be allocated. An elder care lawyer is going to approach it in a different way in the event that the parent or the person gets sick, right? So if the person gets sick, how can they safeguard their assets so that the government, if they have to go on Medicaid or whatever, doesn't take it all away. So for us as a family, we hired an elder care lawyer who helped us create all the documents, so that so that we could care for my parents at home for as long as possible. Nursing homes are very expensive, as we know. Assisted living is also very expensive. So you really want to prepare yourselves financially and make sure you're safeguarding all these assets that your parents have worked so hard for over the years. And that an elder care lawyer will help you do that. I did an interview actually with attorney Linda Relitsky that you can watch up here, where she talks about some of the documents and then we also had another discussion about the differences between Medicare and Medicaid. So you know those differences. Those are some of the fundamental things that you should know. And then you really want to, once you've discussed it with your siblings, you want to sit down with your parents and talk. And this is not one conversation. It is a series of conversations. It doesn't have to be serious, for the first conversation. Without a doubt, they're thinking about it, how they want the rest of their lives to look like. What do they want? What do they not want? There's a lot of people who are scared to think about it. There's a lot of people who are scared to talk about it, like as if they talk about it, it's all of a sudden going to come to fruition, which of course is silly. So, oftentimes, like if somebody that, the family knows passes, that's often a very easy entryway to kind of be like, oh yeah, well, Aunt Sue, she wanted to have it this way. Wasn't her funeral lovely? Whatever, I would love to do this. What do you want, Mom? What do you want, Dad? So you can start to ask these questions. I think that they themselves have been thinking about for sure. And if they don't want to talk about it, then that's fine. You broach it up the next time, because if you keep talking about it, eventually they will want to talk about it. And I think that it's important, for you to be empathetic as much as possible, right? To listen as much as possible. Look for those little openings, where they probably do want to express how they're feeling or what they're thinking. And they'll be relieved. Oftentimes they're relieved because they don't know how to approach the topic with their kids. So sometimes it's better actually when the kids approach and open the topic to begin with. So I have been, as a family, actually our family has been very open about it, maybe because my mom was sick for so long, but she got sick at 65. And I'll tell you, we did not have the conversation before she turned 65. We had no idea how she paid her bills. We had no idea where she kept anything. And it really screwed us as a family. It was horrible. So if you can get that kind of stuff straightened out, if you know your parents, they may not want to give you their passwords to all their accounts, but they may put it in a safe place that where you can access it in the event that they become, incapacitated and unable to pay their own bills, right? So that was something that really took a toll on us, because here we are, Mom's in the hospital and we're trying to figure out whether or not she's going to live or die. And at the same time, she has to pay her mortgage, right? Actually, those were the first words that she said when she woke up from her coma. So you can only imagine the stress on her, that the first words that out of her mouth are pay mortgage. So, if we can have these conversations beforehand, we alleviate that stress, right? So secondly, you want to talk to your parents about their end of life wishes, right? Where do they want to die? My mom was adamant about wanting to die at home. She did not want to be in a nursing home. She did not want to be in a hospital, all those things. So when it actually came time when we knew her cancer we knew that we were never going to put her in the hospital for her cancer. She was never going to go through chemo. She was already too weak. So we had arranged for hospice to come, and sure enough, like clockwork, it's amazing. Hospice is a real gift in this country. It probably depends on the company as well, but our experience was very positive, and they really held our hands through the whole process, right? This is what they do. So whether or not, there's so much unknown and so much uncertainty, and emotions are so high that it's nice to have people who deal with this on a day-to-day basis be able to hold your hand and have that kind of compassion that you need. There are also end-of-life doulas. That's becoming a very popular thing. I've done an interview with an end-of-life doula, Alua Arthur, and I'll put that up here as well, where, they really help the families emotionally and psychologically kind of go through this period of time as a family. So there's different options, and then there's the funeral, right? I think it's really important to know if a person wants to be buried or cremated or whatever, right? We have a lot of options now. There's a lot of green funerals that are happening now and booming. There's just not one way. For my mom, we had a home funeral, which was great. Unfortunately for my dad, we couldn't have a funeral because it was during COVID. For our family, it was the best choice for us. It really fit how we felt about my mom, and it really fit how we really came together as a family over the last 19 years before she passed. And so that's what we decided to do. We had a beautiful home funeral. So I think that it's important to have these conversations. And then you want to put it in writing, of course, so that nobody forgets. I think communication is so, so important. And it's often really, really hard. I'm not sugarcoating it at all. I mean, the conversations can be very, very hard, but it doesn't mean that you stop having the conversations. I think next, I think it's really important to be open with your kids, depending on the age of your kid. But my daughter's 21 now, and so we've had numerous conversations about my end of life plans and then my husband's end of life plans, what we want for funerals. We don't want anything fancy. I certainly don't want anything fancy. I prefer to go as green as possible, whatever that option is, whenever it is whenever I pass. So I think that, I initiated that discussion. And I think that if you initiate the discussion, it just becomes normalized, right? It doesn't become this scary thing that's going to happen to us. And it is going to happen to us, right? So if you give clear direction to your kids, it really alleviates a lot of the stress on them. So they don't have to make these really hard decisions if you just tell them what to do. It may be hard for you to even think about right now. Maybe you feel like you're too young, but I will tell you that, death happens at any age. It doesn't necessarily just happen when you're old. So I think that the more prepared you are, just the better it is. Or maybe if you can't confront, maybe write a letter, maybe write all your thoughts down and just put it in an envelope and, tell them that they can read it upon your death. I don't know. There's all these different creative ways that I think that you can communicate with your kids. But I do think openly talking about it helps to really normalize it and doesn't make it a scary thing. And I think that's really, really important when we're talking about end of life issues. Of course, you have to be sensitive. If your child is too young and they can't handle it, then that's something different altogether. And then that needs to be handled with sensitivity. But I think that even as, a parent who's taking care of kids and also taking care of their parents, I think that as perhaps, your parent is ill, talking to your kids about what's going on, I think is really important. I think it's really important for them to understand the responsibility as a family that you all have. And if it means that mom can't do something because she has to take care of grandma or grandpa, whatever, then, the more you talk about it, the closer that you will become ultimately. But it's not easy and it's stressful and we all feel bad and we feel, I can't, oh my God, the number of times that I just felt so bad and so stressed and just horrible that I wasn't being a good enough wife or a good enough mother or a good enough daughter or whatever. And it just, you can spin yourself out of control. I think there's, thirdly, really important is the self-talk, right? We're all trying to do our best, right? We're all trying to get through life. We're all just trying to put our best foot forward. And whether that's, as a member of your family, as a wife, as a daughter, as a sister, as a mom, as a coworker, we're all trying our best. And I think that that's all that we can do. And I think it's really, really important that you don't burn out, because if your loved one has a long-term chronic illness, it's very easy to burn out. And my sister, my brother, and I, we all at different times, my husband even, like, suffered pretty badly from burnout. And it causes a lot of fights, it causes a lot of anger and resentment, and it's not necessary, right? I mean, we're all going through the same thing. I think at a certain point I realized that everybody was doing their best and that we could only do what we could do. And at that point, we started bringing in extra help to help our family. But even then, it was really, really tough, right? Coordinating schedules and people dropping out and all this kind of stuff. But we really did the best that we could. I think that we need to give people grace. I think we need to treat people with extra kindness. It's hard. It's really hard when you feel like your siblings aren't stepping up, or a loved one isn't stepping up, or somebody's not doing what they said that they're going to do. And it can be super, super frustrating, without a doubt, without a doubt. But you also want to step back and not have it destroy your relationship, right? Not have this period of your life destroy everything. So I think that whether it is having open communication and sitting down with that person and talking about your true feelings, and that's unfortunately the only way it's ever going to resolve itself, right? You can build up the resentment, but that's never going to solve the problem, right? I have to say, with my dad, he lived up in Vermont. He wasn't involved with my mother's care at all. There was never any resentment towards him because he just wasn't capable, to be honest. I mean, he didn't have the capacity to care for somebody else. He was, we all three kids in my family, we all had a very complicated relationship with him. Ultimately, we were able to resolve those feelings, and that's something for a whole other video. But we understood what his limitations were, right? And that's for everybody. We all have our limitations. We all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses. And I think that we really need to recognize that there's always going to end up being one sibling who's going to be able to do most of it. And they're going to end up doing most of the caring. And is it fair? No, it's not fair. But how can we create a better balance, right? If that person's doing physically most of the caregiving, then what can the other siblings do to help and create and provide the support? Whether it's, dealing with the lawyers maybe, or dealing with, paying the bills, or, doing other things that maybe isn't about the hands-on caregiving. But that only happens if you have that open communication. People are going to screw up. People you love are going to screw up. You're going to screw up, without a doubt. You're going to get angry. You're going to get frustrated. But I think what I learned really in that 19-year period taking care of my mom, and then the last 4 years taking care of dad, was that we really need to accept people for where they are and what they can provide, right? In terms of emotional support or actual physical support, that we have to accept people for who they are and where they're at. I think about that time, and whenever I talk to somebody who has a parent that's going through the same thing, that they're worried that, dad just had a heart attack and is at home, is not the same, or just had a major operation, they're not the same. What they can do, I just go back there to where I was, and that I just felt like I didn't have a life for many, many years, that everything was consumed by caring for my parents. And, I did grow resentful for a time, and then I let it go. I just realized that this is what I was supposed to be doing, and that it was okay. And I have to say now, in retrospect, not that I'm grateful for that time, because you can't be grateful to have anybody that you love be sick, or anybody to be sick like that. It's horrible. But I learned so much just about human behavior, just about compassion, just about, and medically, how to care for somebody, and just being able to be there for my mom, and then my dad in a way that was really, really special. Um, I am really sad every day that they're gone now, but I do really believe that they're at peace. I think that their lives, at the end of their lives, while they were alive, was pretty horrible. Um, and I think all three siblings and my husband and the grandkids, they all believe that they did the best that they could, right? We all believe that we provided the love and the support that we could. And at the end of the day, there's no more resentment. I think mom's funeral was an amazing closure. Now that 3 years have passed, I just can't even believe it. It's been 3 years. It's a really somber time for reflection. And I think that once, your parents are gone, we exist in this world in a completely different way. We just walk through the world in a different way. And I think that is a gift in a way, right? Time is precious. Time is really a gift. And for me, I don't want to waste it. I don't want to waste a minute of it. It's part of the reasons why I do this video. I just want to be able to share my experiences, share the knowledge that I learn with other people, so that your life, your last half of life, can be gracious, can be beautiful, can be vibrant, can be anything that you want it to be. And it really can be anything that you want it to be. So thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, I'd love for you to post them in the comments section below. I do hope that wherever you are in your life, whatever stage you may be, that you find happiness and you find some peace, and make sure that you take out some time for yourself.